New York Times journalist Jonathan Swan is famous for this interview with Donald Trump at the height of COVID.
I think it's under control. I'll tell you what.
How? 1,000 Americans are dying a day.
They are dying. That's true. And it is what it is.
Now he's exposing the US president again with a forensic look at what he says was the most consequential year of an American presidency in our lifetime. Donald Trump's first presidency was defined by chaos, but also by the people around him trying to contain it. Swan says the second term is different. Trump has returned to the White House with a tighter circle of loyalists and far fewer people willing to say no. In a new book, Regime Change, co-authored with Maggie Haberman, Jonathan Swan goes inside the first 14 months of Trump's return to power, documenting a presidency using the machinery of government to punish enemies, pressure institutions, and test what one president can get away with. I'm Ruby Jones, and you're listening to 7am. Today, Jonathan Swan on Trump's second term and how he's changed America forever. It's Monday, July 13. Jonathan, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So your new book, Regime Change, it chronicles the first sort of year, 14 months of Trump's second presidency. And people would know you and your co-author, Maggie Haberman, as New York Times journalist. But I thought to begin with, would you mind telling me a bit about the reporting of the book, about how you approached it and what it was that you were trying to show?
So Maggie and I have covered Donald Trump for a long time. This is my 11th consecutive year. Maggie's covered him for more than 25 years. I mean, she had her first byline about Donald Trump in 1998. So Maggie and I were approached by publishers because we were working together at the New York Times at that point. We basically both concluded that whatever was coming next with Trump was going to be an epic story. We were going to write a book about the final act of Donald Trump, whatever that was. And at that time, it could have been a story that ended with Donald Trump going to prison, or it could have ended up with him going to the White House. So we did the book deal and we basically just started reporting. We'd sort of done about a year of hardcore reporting by the time he sworn into office, January 20 last year. We could already see that all of the reporting that we'd done from the campaign, the vast majority of it we were going to throw out.
The office of President of the United States.
The office of President of the United States.
And will, to the best of my ability.
And will, to the best of my ability.
Preserve, protect, and defend.
Preserve, protect, and defend.
The Constitution of the United States.
The Constitution of the United States.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations, Mr. President.
So we made like a very painful decision to basically throw out a whole year's work. But it focused us, and we realized that what the project needed to be was documenting Donald Trump's return to the presidency. And we both believe he's the most consequential American president of our lifetimes, and that last year was the most consequential year of an American presidency in our lifetime. So we just report the hell out of it. And that's kind of how the book came together.
And so what was it that really made you realise that you needed to make that pivot, that this second Trump presidency had the power to change US politics and global politics for good?
So we've seen in the United States over the last few decades an expansion of presidential power. Presidents have been exercising unilateral power to a greater and greater extent. So it's not like Donald Trump came from nowhere. He didn't. There's a lineage before that. But it was very obvious early on when Donald Trump appoints the world's richest man, Elon Musk, as essentially a co-president and allows him to run roughshod over the whole government, the whole federal government, when they shut down an entire agency over a weekend, USAID.
Helping an estimated 32 million children suffering malnutrition and bringing food, water, shelter, and health care to victims of natural disasters. But Musk, the world's richest man, says the agency is hopeless, posting on X, quote, "We spent the weekend feeding USAID into the wood chipper."
Major foreign aid agency gutted and then absorbed into the State Department. Within a couple of months, he starts a trade war with the whole world. Liberation Day.
My fellow Americans, this is Liberation Day. I'm waiting for a long time.
He didn't talk to Congress before he did it. He just did it.
April 2nd, 2025 will forever be remembered as the day American industry was reborn, the day America's destiny was reclaimed.
Then you start to see him use the Justice Department as an engine for retribution, to actually direct his attorney general to prosecute individuals and investigate individuals. And you start to see investigations being opened up into Donald Trump's enemies.
We've got some breaking news coming into us just in the past hour here. The former FBI director, James Comey, has now been subpoenaed, apparently, in connection with the so-called grand conspiracy. Remember, Comey has been repeatedly singled out as this perceived political enemy of the president's.
Then you see him use government powers to coerce universities.
President Trump again setting his sights on Harvard University over the weekend, chastising the school for failing to hand over documents on its international students and saying it doesn't enroll enough Americans.
I'm not going to have a problem with foreign students, but it shouldn't be 31%. It's too much because we have Americans that want to go there. And
law firms that employ or represent people he doesn't like.
Perkins Coie LLP, for example, represents former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton and billionaire Democratic donor George Soros. In Trump's executive orders, he demands that security clearances be suspended for all three of these firms and that their federal contracts be suspended.
Using his leverage over deals to squeeze money out of media companies.
The FCC approved Skydance Media's $8 billion bid to acquire CBS News parent company Paramount. The green light from Trump's FCC comes after Paramount agreed to a $16 million settlement over a lawsuit brought by the president.
It was very clear that Donald Trump was using power in ways that we haven't seen from any president in my lifetime. And in some respects, like his monetization of the office and the family profiteering of the office, we've never seen at this scale from a United States president. The personalization of the office of the presidency as an extension of Donald Trump's own personal interests. We haven't seen anything at this scale from a United States president.
And while all of this was happening, power was becoming more and more concentrated within the White House, right? I mean, you've spoken about this sort of 5 or 6 people who form the inner circle who are making a lot of the decisions that affect the entire country and the world. Can you tell me a little bit more about that close circle and how they see Trump?
Well, this is another area where this second term of Trump is unrecognizable from the first term. During the first term as a reporter, if you were covering the first term of Trump and you were having background conversations with very senior officials, they could be very senior officials in the White House, at the State Department, at the Pentagon, you would frequently hear from Trump's inner circle, not universal, but frequently, that Trump was dangerous, and that they saw themselves as protecting the United States and the world from Donald Trump.
The last year of the Trump administration, and to tell the story about things we prevented, really bad things, dangerous things, that could have taken the country in a dark direction.
What kind of terrible things did you prevent?
At various times, during certainly the last year of the administration, you have folks in the White House who are proposing to take military action against Venezuela, to strike Iran. At one point, somebody proposed we blockade Cuba. These ideas would happen, it seemed, every few weeks, something like this would come up, and we'd have to swat them down.
Now you have a group of people that likes him, believes in him, is loyal to him. It's a smaller group. It's more of a tight-knit group. Some of them went through the whole campaign with him and see him as a figure of destiny. Some believe that there is a spiritual dimension, that God has protected him, how he miraculously avoided being killed with that assassination attempt when the bullet grazed his ear, that this was a divine intervention, and that also Donald Trump's own miraculous ability to come back from January 6th and the indictments and all the tribulations to become president. When he says something in a meeting these days, which might be outlandish or even crazy to some people's ears, the staff this time are far less inclined to dismiss the idea, even if instinctively they're like, oh, that's a bit crazy. they're much more inclined to think, well, maybe he's picking up on something we're not picking up on, or maybe he's seeing something we're not seeing, that they almost invest him with these supernatural almost capacities. So it's a group that's much more deferential to him, who sees their role as executing what he wants, doing what he wants, and not putting up barriers or obstacles.
Still to come, Donald Trump's pride in being compared to Hitler, Stalin, and Genghis Khan. Jonathan, after all of this time covering Trump, you must be more desensitized than some to the more outlandish, the more kind of crazy ideas that have come out of the White House. But did anything that you heard from, I think, the more than 1,000 insiders that you spoke to, did any of it shock you?
I don't know that it shocked me, because I know how his world works and I'm so immersed in it and I cover it every day. But certain events unnerved even the people around him. So I'll give you an example. We get into the book the astonishing sequence of events that leads to Liberation Day last year, when Trump starts a trade war with the whole world. His aides were frightened. Some of his advisors were genuinely frightened after that moment, because what they started to see in the data was, yes, the stock market dropped, there were gyrations, in the Dow and whatever. But actually what happened after Liberation Day was the bond markets almost melted down. And Trump pushed the global economy right to the brink.
The announcement of US President Trump's far-reaching tariffs last week have sent shockwaves through the global economy. Nearly $150 billion was wiped off the ASX in less than an hour this morning, amid growing fears of a global recession.
Take a look here. Okay, the loss to GDP in 2025, Trump's tariffs. Look at this. We're talking about $180 billion, $180 billion with a B. That is eye-popping. But it's not.
And it took, as we document in the book, almost pleading from his Treasury Secretary and Commerce Secretary to get him to step back from the brink and to put a pause on those tariffs. So shocking, maybe not, but he pushes things so much further this term than he did in the first term. He's willing to take so much bigger risks. The Iran war is an obvious example of that.
We're going to destroy their missiles and raise their missile industry to the ground. It will be totally, again, obliterated.
He started that war despite his own CIA director, as we reveal in the book, his own CIA director telling him that Benjamin Netanyahu's presentation about regime change was farcical, and his own Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, saying it was bullshit. But Trump at a gut level felt that Iran was going to collapse, that they would fold very quickly, that it would be a quick war, and all of the scenarios that he'd been warned about were not going to come to bear. This stuff did not happen in the first term. He wasn't willing to roll the dice like that. So yeah, I'd say there have been things that have shocked me.
And share with me, I suppose, where you think Trump is now in terms of his thoughts on power and his own legacy, because I know there was this one big sit-down interview you had with him as part of the book, which I think was quite revealing. What's your sense of how he is thinking about how he's changing the world?
So when we went and met with the president at the end of our reporting process, just a side note, obviously we wanted an interview with Trump. He's, it's the subject of our book. His staff was not eager to facilitate that interview, to say the least. So we ended up just going directly to the president. We called him a couple of times, texted him, whatever. And eventually he told his staff to set up the interview. So we sit down with him. It's March the 16th. It's like the 17th day of the war with Iran. Really fraught period. Americans had died. It was already clear it was not going to be the quick war that he imagined. And there was this amazing moment in the interview where we had some reporting that Trump had been telling people that he was the most powerful American president there had ever been. There had never been a president as powerful as he was. So we asked him a question about his own power. And instead of answering it directly, he asks one of his aides, this young woman, Natalie Harp, to go and get the document, he said, from the historian. So she runs off, And she races back and hands us this 2-page document, each of us. And Trump's sitting there across from us, the Resolute desk, and he's got a copy and he's watching us. He's reading this document. He's clearly kind of relishing it, wants us to take it in. And it starts by saying, Donald Trump is the most powerful man who's ever existed on the planet by far. And then it goes on to compare him to what Trump told us were the top 10. Hitler, Stalin, Mao, Genghis Khan, Attila the Hun, William the Conqueror, Alexander the Great, Tamerlane, you get the idea. But not a moral comparison of any sort. It was all about power, and that the point was they were powerful, but their power was localized, regional. Trump's is global. He can project power with the force of the US military, with America's economic and technological power. So it was a revealing moment for 2 reasons. One, it was interesting that Trump was completely untroubled by being in their company, and that power was this dominant, overriding value for him. In the company of some of the great monsters of history, he was sort of absorbing. He's like, Napoleon, very interesting, But secondly, it helped explain something that we were puzzling over in our reporting, which was, we've both noticed, Maggie and I, that this term, Trump is far less responsive to domestic politics than he was in the first term. If there are bad poll numbers or some domestic political concern or people worried about the midterm elections, it's not that he's not at all concerned about it, but he is so far less concerned about it than he was in term 1. And when you understand it through the lens of, I want to be Napoleon, I'm being slightly glib saying that, but not really. I want to be the capital G great man of history of our time. I want to expand the American landmass, make Venezuela into a 51st state with a pliant leader who's more like a governor, take their oil, reshape Iran, take Greenland, whatever. You start to understand why he's willing to roll the dice in the way that he's rolling the dice this term, which he certainly wasn't willing to do in the first term.
Jonathan, thank you so much for your time.
Pleasure.
Also in the news, Iran has declared the Strait of Hormuz closed until further notice after firing warning shots at a container ship it claimed was travelling on an unapproved route. The US military has retaliated, striking Iranian targets. The interim deal to end the war is now on shaky ground, with Trump declaring the ceasefire over. Iran's new supreme leader, in his first statement since his father's funeral, has vowed to avenge his death. And One Nation MP Barnaby Joyce has refused to guarantee his party will cost all of its policies before the next federal election, after Angus Taylor claimed their current platform would cost more than $1 trillion over a decade. Joyce questioned whether they'll have the resources to cost their policies. That's despite the Budget Office being available to all MPs to provide independent analysis of their proposals. I'm Ruby Jones. This is 7am. Thanks for listening.